Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to mini episode 2. This is the Fourth String Sports Podcast Lite. Same amount of content, fewer calories. This is our kind of mini episodes that we do. First one we did on the Bucks. This one we're going to be talking about the Big Ten. We do these once a week, usually the day before recording, where we just talk about a topic that we have not gotten the chance to talk about or some big sports news that we know we're not going to be able to do justice on a normal episode. So today we're talking about the Big Ten. The Big Ten, which has been a roller coaster ride of will they, won't they, cancel football, bring football back, will they cancel it again, who's in, who's out, whatever it might
Ross
be.
Rachel.
Yes, exactly, honestly. And for a while, it seemed like we were on a break. But now, everybody is back together. The Big Ten has announced that football will be returning. And today, we are going to be breaking down the East and the Western Conference. For the Big Ten, we're going to be picking some game or two that we think is going to stand out. We're going to pick our conference winner. We're going to talk about just how happy we are that the Big Ten is back. The reason we're going a little bit more in depth with this is that we're all Big Ten fans. Me and Mitch, Wisconsin fans, Skyler, a Nebraska fan. So this conference hits close to home. We won't talk in depth on each team, but we're going to be breaking some stuff down. We're going to talk about how we got to this moment, and then breaking down the Big Ten. So we appreciate everybody for listening to the Fourth String Sports Podcast Lite, episode 2. Dedicated to the Big Ten, proudly sponsored by Miller Lite.
American family.
No, we're not.
Right.
We can't say that, Brady.
I know.
Get sued.
I know.
Thank you.
Proudly sponsored by
AmFam.
KFC. So, AmFam, yeah, by Enron.
There we go, Enron.
But we appreciate everybody for tuning in, for listening. Follow us on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, SoundCloud, Reddit, YouTube. And email us your guys' thoughts, fourthstringsp@gmail.com. On the main episode we're going to do tomorrow, we're going to break down week 2 of the NFL season, look ahead to week 3, talk about our fantasy league a little bit, talk about we are now 3 games into the Western Conference Finals. And after tonight, we will be done with Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So we've got a lot to look forward to. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. So let's talk about the Big Ten. Now, the Big Ten, shortly after the Pac-12 announced that they would be canceling their season, the Big Ten joined in. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this was back in –
Flip it around. Big Ten announced first, then Pac-12. Yep.
Whatever. So this was back in, July that this happened.
Yes.
That they stated that they will be canceling the season. But 6 days before that, they announced a brand-new conference-only schedule that had one non-conference game in there. So it was a little confusing to fans. Why the sudden change? The Big Ten announced that it was due to possible heart issues related to players or people who had COVID. And again, in a previous episode, we talked about the young man from the University of California in Pennsylvania. I know that can be confusing, but it's the University of California in Pennsylvania, the 19-year-old football player who died due to COVID. And it kind of seemed justified. But some troublemakers out west in the little place called Nebraska decided to take some lawsuits to the Big Ten. And pretty quickly after that, other athletic directors, team doctors, some other teams who were already pretty vocal, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, joined in on the ranks and basically made the Big Ten reconsider. Now, there's still a lot of details that are out. The Big Ten has attempted to backtrack, and they've gotten some pretty big voices in order to help them out with that. But the Big Ten then announced in a unanimous vote, keeping in mind that the original vote to cancel the season was 11-3. Now in a unanimous vote, 14 votes for, 0 votes against, the Big Ten announced a return to football. They will be playing 8 conference games, 4 home games, 4 away games for each team. Some teams like Ohio State and Wisconsin have a cakewalk of a schedule. Other teams like Nebraska are going to get taken behind the woodshed for the first couple of weeks. And Skyler will have more on that in just a moment. But before we get to Skyler's kind of rant on the issues with the Big Ten here, let's just take a moment. How do we feel that Big Ten football is actually going to return? We have a start date in October, and Big Ten football is going to be back.
I don't think it's going to be clean as in crisp as we normally see it, just because of we're going to have a season, then oops, we're not having a season. It's like, just kidding, it's back on. So I just think of the uncertainty of flip-flopping is going to mess up the players just so they can get in rhythm, conditioning, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's going to be what we expect Big Ten football to be the first couple of weeks, but I think after that they'll get on their way.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Mitch there for a little bit, but I also think that the idea that the Big Ten did allow for small team activities to be going through within I think 12 hours a week is what they said. kind of helps them get back into the swing of things. And I know the student athletes are really excited about it. I know Lincoln as a city was really excited when we found out the Big Ten was coming back for football. So I think that I just, from how everybody's wrapping up, getting ready to play, it's exciting to see that again on my social media feed. No longer is it Wandell Robinson and Adrian Martinez just being like, I hate sitting here watching while other teams play. It's more like I'm excited to see the ends on the helmets again. I'm excited to see people getting in those practice fields. It's starting to feel like fall.
Yeah, it really is. I think that there is a ton to look forward to. I agree with you, Mitch. I think the first couple of weeks are going to be sloppy, and that's why, some teams like Ohio State have a cakewalk week one. Gotcha, Skylar. Just kidding. So I think it's definitely going to be sloppy. No, I'm not. We all realistically know what's going to happen week one.
Wisconsin will beat Illinois.
Yeah. Maybe. I think it's going to be sloppy, but I think that I don't think that we've seen sloppy from the rest of college football. Now, again, we have really yet to see the SEC play, and the SEC is one of the only ones who are starting out conference only, and that's where I think we might have some more issues. I think that when a team like Clemson gets to play the Citadel week one, right, it's a warm-up game. You know what you're going to get. The guys are just getting in the groove. But then when you've got some premier matchups week one, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, Ohio State, Iowa, Purdue, Penn State, Indiana, like those are big games. And immediately by only having 8 conference games, you're playing for stuff. No team can really afford to lose any games. So I definitely think it's going to be a little sloppier, but I'm still excited. I'm still pumped as hell.
But I think the difference is, with the SEC and all those other conferences, their season was never put on hold. They were full steam ahead. So that's why there isn't the sloppiness. Whereas the Big Ten, like I said before, they just kept flip-flopping. So, the players can't really adjust.
I'm going to fight back on the sloppiness because as far as I remember, 3 Big 12 teams lost to Sun Belt teams. We saw some ACC teams have some very questionable play. Navy got ran all over by BYU, and then came back and beat Tulane last week. Notre Dame didn't look like itself against Duke. Oklahoma State scored 17 points against the Tulane team. So I'm going to fight back on some of that sloppy play because there was a lot of sloppy play that we were seeing, and even in the NFL, like from week 1 to week 2, we saw how different these teams can play. So I'm going to say football in general, there's going to be sloppy play. And that's the only thing that gives me hope for Nebraska.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. But again, with most of those, there were definitely some upsets, right? But there's always upsets that are going to happen. But at the same time, like UCF played Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech had already played some games UCF hadn't. UCF absolutely demolished Georgia Tech.
True.
So it's hit or miss. But Skylar has some opinions he would like to share with the class, and we are going to let him just go on his little tangent for a little bit before we kind of break down some Big Ten games that we're really looking forward to seeing this season.
I'm going to preface this by these are thoughts that I've had for a while about Big Ten's treatment towards Nebraska. I'm not going to say specifically the Big Ten. I'm going to talk about national analysts in general, and I feel like it all stems back to the fact that they all played college football in the 90s, and they're really still butthurt about being beaten behind the shed by Nebraska teams.
And that's all the time we have. So now, Mitch,
fuck you, please let me go. Let me go. Okay. Now.
Okay. Bye.
Fuck you. I didn't even talk for like a full minute.
Go ahead.
My biggest problem right now, if anybody knows who I am and knows my connections with football, it's how the Big Ten has treated Nebraska specifically, how college football analysts treated Nebraska specifically. And I thought it came more to light this last weekend on Saturday when the Big Ten announced their schedule. Everybody saw that Nebraska was playing Ohio State, and all of these analysts, Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, Joey, whatever his last name is on college football for ESPN.
Galloway.
Joey Galloway chucking up and saying Nebraska's getting what they asked for. I'm going to point out Nebraska has to play. That's when Nebraska has to play. Nebraska was the most vocal about wanting to play of any Big Ten team, where it was to the point of those 3 votes, we knew it was 11-3, but we had no idea who the other 2 teams were because they weren't saying shit. I'm kind of getting tired of the hypocrisy. Nebraska was made fun of. Nebraska was belittled because we were very vocal about wanting to play, to the point of where we said, we don't care. We want to play. And players like Justin Fields, coaches like Ryan Day and James Franklin are praised for helping save the Big Ten. When I remember, like Brady said, 8 Nebraska players sued the Big Ten for lack of information due to the cancellation of the season. Scott Frost and Bill Moos were very, very vocal about wanting to play. It's infuriating. Scott Frost buried his father on Saturday. And instead of, being, hey, Big Ten's back, let's be excited, these national analysts never once said anything about the fact that no condolences to Scott Frost or his family. Which, again, I'm very sorry for the Frost family. I hope that they're doing good. I hope that they're healing in this difficult time right now. It's gotten to the point where it's getting really upsetting for Nebraska fans to feel like we belong in the Big Ten, that we belong in college football generally. And to point out to everybody that what we asked for, we already had to play Ohio State and Penn State in 2020. This wasn't the Big Ten punishing Nebraska. This was the Big Ten sticking by our Big Ten schedule. This is who we had to play. Me and Brady talked about it in July, going, holy shit, Nebraska's schedule is tough this year. Nebraska's schedule is usually tough. We have to play Wisconsin and Minnesota every year. We've had to play Ohio State every year since 2016. You sprinkle in a Michigan or a Penn State in there, and it gets really, really tough. I'm just getting tired as a Nebraska fan seeing the conference that we joined to make your conference better, to make you guys more reputable in the Power 5, to make you guys seem like you were actually a football powerhouse, that it wasn't just Ohio State and Michigan anymore, that you guys could have more teams, that you guys could be more competitive, that you could get a football giant like Nebraska to sign on to your version of football and how you wanted to run things. And we've been treated like shit since we joined. And I get it. Nebraska's quality of play in the Big Ten has dropped horribly. I'll give you that. As a Nebraska fan, I'm very aware of it. But how we're being treated, I would be okay leaving the Big Ten right now because we're not treated like an equal member. I get the new kid on the block gets harassed a little, but this is past like jokes. This is actual harassment. This is actual belittlement. This is actual disrespect to the University of Nebraska, which I'll tell you brings a ton of money to the Big Ten every year. Nebraska fans are some of the most loyal fans in the country. I mean, Brady and Mitch can talk about it. They've been to Nebraska games. They've had Nebraska fans go to Wisconsin. They've interacted with us. We're loyal. We're nice. We treat you guys with respect.
I mean, one guy knocked my hat off my head, but
and then all the Nebraska fans around you went.
Yeah, and then all the other Nebraska fans were like, "Hey, you dick!" You know.
I'm done.
No. I mean, like, I agree with you to a certain extent. I feel like the Big Ten is a better conference because Nebraska is in it, not just for football, but academically. I mean, Nebraska is a world-accredited university. If you say that you got a degree from the University of Nebraska, there's not many jobs in this world that you cannot get. Across all sports, volleyball, softball, track and field, baseball, the whole 9 yards. Nebraska has made the Big Ten a better sport or a better conference. I completely agree with a lot of the disrespect that came Nebraska's way, especially Saturday. Saturday was disgusting to look at. Because had Ryan Day's father died, had James Franklin's father died, had Paul Chris' father died, they would have had fucking moratoriums on Big Ten Network. But instead, we see a Big Ten conference who gives pretty much no attention to the racist accusations that come out of the University of Iowa, and yet decides to, just like Skylar said, belittle Nebraska for wanting to play football. At the same point, Skylar, and I've said this to you before, and I'll say this to all Nebraska fans, you can't ask for respect when, unfortunately, you haven't earned any in the Big Ten. You've won some games. I'll give you that. You went to a Big Ten championship. You have more respect than Purdue or than Indiana or than, Illinois
Rutgers.
or Rutgers or stuff like that. I'll absolutely give that to you. And I understand that Bo Pelini and whatever his nuts was in between and early Scott Frost or whatever, you guys are rebuilding. I'm not arguing with that either. But, and I've told you this before, Skylar, if Nebraska wants to shut the haters up, you got to win a Big Ten championship game. You have to. Now,
I'll give that to you. I understand that, but I'm just back up real quick. Jeff Brom, fucking Chris Ash, can't think of the Indiana head coach at this point right now. These other teams that you're saying, I agree with you on the fact that Nebraska, I will agree with you 110% that Nebraska needs to really shut up the haters. We need to win a Big Ten championship.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I will give you that. But this isn't just like how we talk about Minnesota or how we talk about Iowa, where it's like, the joke was at a Nebraska-Minnesota game, a Minnesota fan stood up and goes, "Who hates Iowa?" And we all went, "We do." That's different.
Yeah.
Than what Nebraska is being treated like.
No, and I'm not saying that Nebraska isn't being hit with disrespect. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you don't want the bullying that comes with it, you have to win a Big Ten championship game. Now, obviously, that is easier said than done. Hey, me and Mitch are Wisconsin fans. We've been there a couple of times. We understand the pain of not winning it. But at least because we've won it in recent memory and because we've gone and been competitive in a couple of games, we've got a little bit of respect.
This goes beyond that.
Hold on. What I'm saying is that you can get a preseason power ranking where Michigan, who has lost everybody from last year's team, which was already a bad team, and Michigan is inherently expected to be better than Nebraska, who's returning a bunch of people. That is Big Ten bias. I'll absolutely give that to you. I will absolutely give that to you. But if Nebraska doesn't want to be treated like new kid on the block, they got to pop somebody in the mouth. Now, again, I am not claiming that Nebraska has not been hit with bullying and with disrespect and with everything.
This isn't new kid on the block. This is like redheaded stepchild.
If they don't want to be treated like the redheaded stepchild, as the redheaded stepchild of my family, if they don't want to be treated as the redheaded stepchild, they've got to pop somebody in the mouth.
Okay, both of you. Just quick question. Yep. If Wisconsin was treated like this, how would you act?
Situation.
No. Quick question. With Nebraska's pedigree.
Sure.
Because it's not like this isn't just Nebraska. This isn't just
a thing.
So no.
Quick question. This isn't just talking Nebraska football. We are talking about the university as a whole.
Yeah. And again, I don't agree with the way that they have been treated in terms of the fuck you Nebraska, you got to play Ohio State, I know
you don't.
I don't agree with. But
I know. I'm talking about the university as a whole, Brady, here.
The university as a whole, I completely understand and would completely agree with you that had the University of Wisconsin been treated the same way, I would be up in arms. I'm not arguing with that. Okay. But in your scenario, if we say that, we flip it and we say Wisconsin goes and joins the Big 12, and in their first, when did Nebraska join the Big 10? Was it 2010? 2011?
2013.
Some shit like that. So in their first 7 seasons, they have 1 Big 10 championship appearance and 3 bowl game appearances, right? And Wisconsin was being treated like this. Yeah, I'd also be pretty pissed. But I'd also kind of understand we hadn't earned any respect. Again, there's a difference between the comments about Nebraska getting what they deserved and Nebraska not getting the respect of the Big Ten for what they've done. Nebraska is definitely not getting the respect from the Big 10 for what they do, what they bring to the conference, the world accreditation of the university, the various sports that they produce, the
Have
student
won
athletes.
national championships.
Exactly. The amount of money they bring in the
Big
Big Ten. Nebraska absolutely gets no credit for that. Not arguing with you that there. But I guess at its core, what I'm saying is that there's a little bit of it. I'm not asking you to take all of it. I'm saying there's a little bit of it. You got to take on the chin, because a little bit of it is that Nebraska hasn't really won anything since joining the Big Ten.
True. I'll give you that. But we've won more than Indiana and Purdue and Illinois and Northwestern and various. Oh, no, Northwestern made it to the Big Ten championship game. I'll put them aside.
True, but all of
Other
those teams you've also named have gone to bowl games in each of the last 3 seasons, I believe.
True, and I'll
other
give
sports.
you Nebraska,
like basketball.
True, but Nebraska as a volleyball member has won 3 national championships as a member of the Big Ten.
True.
We have made it to the NCAA tournament as a member of the Big Ten.
True.
We have won the Big Ten championship in baseball as members of the Big Ten. We've won track as members of the Big Ten, but because we haven't performed the way Nebraska is expected to perform in football, I'll take that. I will tell you, Nebraska fans are not disillusioned here. We understand our team sucks right now. We get it.
I also
And not
think
even
that
suck. It's just suck in the terms of a Big Ten.
I also think that a large portion of this, and this is what we'll wrap up on, is that for casual fans like my dad, like your dad, like Mitch's family, like most people listen to this podcast, they really don't pay attention to how the Big Ten does in volleyball or in baseball or in track and field.
Yeah, they only care about football and basketball, and Nebraska hasn't succeeded in either. So to them, you're shit, even though you won national championships in volleyball, baseball, like you said.
I think, Mitch, you're putting that. I think you're putting that a little harshly, but
I agree.
But I think at the same time that if Big Ten fans really understood the amount of money, really understood, even let's just take something simple, right? Nebraska was dog shit a couple years ago. They walk into fucking Purdue and get the shit knocked out of them by a worse Purdue team. But that was the first game in like 25 years that Purdue actually sold out their stadium. Why?
Because Nebraska
fans bought all the tickets. So, like, Purdue made a shit ton of money because Nebraska plays in the Big Ten.
Well, no, and I mean...
So when Nebraska went to Illinois last season, pretty much the same thing happened. When Nebraska, now Wisconsin's already always sold out, but I don't see Wisconsin games as filled with opposing fans as when we have played Nebraska. And I've gone.
No, it's that tiny corner.
No, it's not. No, God, no, it's not.
At Wisconsin?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it is not, Mitch. I've been in the stands multiple times when Nebraska has played Wisconsin in Wisconsin, and it is not a tiny corner.
It's just hard. It's just hard to tell.
I'm not talking about Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Oh, you're talking about.
I'm just saying Wisconsin in general. It's usually like, tiny corners.
Yeah, it's usually a couple of tiny corners.
Yeah, but obviously when Nebraska comes to play, it's mixed.
We blend in well, too, because we're red. So, like, we just blend in with the opposing teams. So, like, Wisconsin, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Rutgers up there, too.
Maryland.
There's just more of us, though.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Big Ten benefits from Nebraska. No doubt about that. So, let's move on here. We have the Big Ten schedule that was announced. I'm going to ask the guys to pick just a couple of games that stand out to them. Now, we're going to try to avoid being complete homers here. So I'm going to ask Mitch and Skylar to at least begin by picking 1 or 2 games that do not involve Wisconsin or Nebraska. And then if there's a Wisconsin or Nebraska game you want to pick later on, let me know. So what are 1 or 2 games that kind of stand out to you that you feel like you're going to be really excited to watch?
So I can't pick either Wisconsin or Nebraska?
Well, no, you can pick Nebraska, just not Wisconsin.
Skylar
can pick Wisconsin,
just the way you said it, I was confused.
Sorry, my bad.
I'll probably just start with the obvious, Ohio State versus just Nebraska. I'm just curious, like, not because of what people think is going to happen. I think we could see an upset, to be honest, because Ohio State usually loses one. And, the way that Nebraska's been treated all year, this could be their moment to be like, fuck you, Ohio State, fuck you, Big Ten. You should treat us with the respect that we deserve, and this could be your moment. Like I said before, with the flip-flopping, there could be sloppy football, and if, Justin Fields and the whole team's not playing their best, and Scott Frost and the boys are bringing it, this could be an upset, and I could see it, to be honest, and I'm excited to see, like, is Nebraska going to bring it and bring that upset, and then how's Ohio State going to perform? So that's one game I'm looking forward to that I don't think a lot of people are looking forward to.
Yeah,
go ahead, Scott.
I can tell you Nebraska fans are not looking forward to that game. But anyways, Brady.
I mean, I could absolutely see okay, I'll be honest. I cannot see Nebraska winning this game. But I could absolutely see Nebraska keeping it competitive. If this game is 31-17 Ohio State, I'm a happy Nebraska fan.
Yeah.
Hell, if this game is 56-42, I'm a happy Nebraska fan. As long as this game isn't the woodshed that Scott Frost was taken to last season in Lincoln, I'm happy with it. I don't think Nebraska has to win this game, but if Nebraska can keep it competitive, if Nebraska can stay within striking distance, keep Ohio State on their toes, I think this is a huge statement for Nebraska. I kind of chalk it up very similar to like the end of Mitch. Who was the Wisconsin head coach from Oregon State? Was that Anderson?
Oh, Gary Anderson. Yeah,
Gary Anderson. I kind of chalk it up to like when Wisconsin played reigning national title champion Alabama week 1. And yeah, we lost, but we kept it competitive was the thing. And so if Nebraska can keep this game competitive, there's a lot to grow on and build on for Nebraska.
Well, Nebraska, Scott Frost's first year, we went to Ohio State against the third-ranked team in the country and only lost by 5.
True. And no fans at the shoe.
No fans at the shoe, which could be big, but it's also still the shoe. So I as a Nebraska fan, I'm wary. I'm again, cautiously optimistic about the direction of the team, and I'd much rather play Ohio State week 1 than week 8.
Now, I do have a question. Skylar, is Nebraska going to have fans in the stands?
No Big Ten team is.
Yeah, no Big Ten team. Okay, yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Nebraska, if Big Ten had allowed for fans in the stands, Nebraska could have had at least 20,000 fans in the stands due to local restrictions on figuring out how many people can be there. But because of the Big Ten saying no fans in the stands at all.
So are they going to make the seats hold the balloons then?
Well, it's like Lambeau. It's a bleacher kind of situation. So I think it's going to be a little rough.
Are they going to give the players balloons?
Can't the Jawas and
I would love it.
I would love to see the players have balloons.
Just like Adrian Martinez running out there with a fucking balloon. No, I'd love it.
Looking like Pennywise the Clown.
With one hand because...
Oh, no, around October. No, the funny thing is we play Wisconsin. We play you guys in Lincoln October 31st.
Yeah, so, we too, yeah.
I hope somebody dresses up as Pennywise and releases the red balloons.
We've done it every since that movie came out. Every Halloween-ish game, there is some Nebraska fan in a Pennywise outfit.
That's awesome.
And see, that's actually one thing I want to talk about that really upsets me with the return of the Big Ten is that a Wisconsin tradition, and we've done it against Nebraska a couple of times, is the fucking if Halloween is on a Saturday, Wisconsin plays a home game against a Big Ten opponent, and the fucking fans in the student section are in costume. It's awesome, and I'm upset that A, there's no fans in the stands, and that B, we have to go on the road on Halloween because that's a Wisconsin tradition. But whatever. Skylar, what's one or two Big Ten games that stand out to you?
Screw a game or 2 games. I'm going to go an entire week. I'm looking specifically at November 28th, at Thanksgiving week. We got some really good games there. We got Minnesota, Wisconsin. We have, just to throw it out there, Nebraska, Iowa. We have, Michigan, Penn State. We have Rutgers, Purdue. That will be an interesting game. I'll watch it for the hell of it.
Michigan State, Northwestern.
Michigan State, Northwestern. There's some pretty good games. I think besides probably week 2, I'm looking at it right now. Besides week 2, I would say that's probably the most interesting matchup in the Big Ten schedule. That's just me eyeballing it right now. Maybe week 8. Week 8 is pretty interesting too with Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. Like those are again some big ones. But you know what? I'm going to go with that November 28th week. I think that a lot of, if we're not sure who's won the West and the East by then, we'll know that week, I think.
Sure. Yeah, so I've got 3 games that stand out to me. Week 1, Michigan at Minnesota. This is going to be a great litmus test to me for both of these teams. What is Minnesota going to look like coming off of their technically co-Big Ten West championship, but fucking suck a dick, Minnesota.
Fuck them.
Obviously a massive season of improvement for PJ Fleck, but they lost a lot of players last year, or from last year's team. How are they going to bounce back? And then honestly, what Michigan team are we going to look like? Now, this is a trophy game. This is the battle for the little brown jug. This is an awesome game. And I am going to be pointing out every fucking trophy game that I can because the Big Ten I think the Big Ten has more trophy games than the rest of college football combined.
Nebraska's gained 3 trophy games since joining the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep adding them too. So
which is fucking fine with me because trophy games are one of my favorite thing about college football.
Because Wisconsin keeps holding on to the trophies and they never share.
I mean, okay, but so I've got another trophy game on here that nobody talks about on my third matchup, which I'll bring up. But there are some really awesome trophies. Paul Bunyan's axe, the Heartland Trophy, fucking Floyd of Rosedale, I think, is an awesome trophy. Even the Minnesota-Nebraska one, the battle for the broken bits of a chair.
That's a hilarious one.
I think is great. You got Lincoln's top hat. You've got the Old Oaken bucket. You've got there's the land
What's
grant.
Nebraska, Wisconsin? Is it
the Freedom Trophy? The Freedom Trophy.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've got the battle for the bell. Minnesota, Penn State. You've got so many of these. I think they're all fantastic.
You have to throw it in there.
Yeah, I mean, I already did. They're all great. You got Paul Bunyan's axe, and then you've also got Paul Bunyan's trophy, Michigan State. They're fantastic. But this is a good litmus test, and this is also one of those games where if you're a Wisconsin fan, you unfortunately have to root for Michigan. You want Minnesota to take as many L's.
Who's the quarterback? Did they announce it yet?
That is a good fucking question. So
it's not the McCaffrey; it's the other kid.
Yeah, whatever.
But there's 2 of them.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm sure they'll announce.
There's the holdover, and then there's that 5-star recruit they have coming in.
I think it's the holdover.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't remember. Next is a Week 5 matchup that is not being highly talked about. It is Iowa at Penn State. I have both of these teams coming in about 2 or 3 on my Big Ten power rankings in their division or in their conferences. This is going to be a massive game because if Iowa or Penn State walks in maybe 1 game behind a Wisconsin or an Ohio State, this is a make or break one. This could obviously decide who's getting into the Big Ten championship with a lot of different factors. And then the third one is the battle for the Illabuck. We have Illinois at Ohio State. This is a Week 6 matchup. Do I think Illinois is going to win this game? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But just like I think Nebraska at Ohio State is going to be a really good litmus test, I think that Iowa at home against Ohio State is going to be a really good litmus test. Now we're going to be able to see in year 3 of the Lovie-Smith experiment, is there actual progress at Illinois after a pretty good season last year where they beat Wisconsin. They came back, ironically, 28-3 against Michigan State and beat them. They made a bowl game. There was a huge amount of success around Illinois. They had some great recruits who came in. So now we're going to see, does that success carry over? Those are the games that I'm most excited to watch. So now we've set our piece on our non-Big Ten teams. Boys, pick a Big Ten team, pick a Big Ten game for Wisconsin or Nebraska that you're looking forward to watching.
I'm going to stick with the game 1 for us against Illinois because, we lost to them, a game that we shouldn't have. I want to see if Wisconsin can rectify the kind of mistakes we had last year, losing games that we shouldn't have. And if we can clean that up, I think we could have a pretty good season, even though we lost some key players. So I'm interested to see what we can do against an Illinois to make sure we don't happen again. And then just what our team's going to look like. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's gone. I think Nakia Watson's most likely going to be the starter just due to his experience. And then what's Jack Cohen going to do for his final year? So I'm interested to see what this offense is going to look like post Jonathan Taylor.
I'll follow Week 2, Nebraska, Wisconsin. I think that as much as you guys believe Ohio State is a litmus test for Nebraska, I definitely believe Wisconsin's a litmus test for Nebraska. As much as Nebraska has improved under Scott Frost, won 1 more game last year than we did all of the year before and the year before that. And I will honestly say Nebraska's gotten better against Wisconsin each year. Nebraska's offense has been able to put up a lot of yards, but not enough points. Sadly, I think we were inside you guys' 40, 8 times last year, and came away with 27 points.
Turnovers, issues with field goal kickers you had last season.
Yeah, and from everything I understand, we actually have a kicker this year. Adrian Martinez hopefully can shake that off because he's got a fire under his ass by the name of Luke McCaffrey, who's gunning for his position, honestly. And I wouldn't be surprised if Luke McCaffrey.
Has he looked good from what you've heard?
Luke McCaffrey has looked great. Both last year and this year. Luke McCaffrey he's like all the McCaffreys.
Except Dylan.
except for Dylan. Or no, except for Max. Max McCaffrey's the one that was a wide receiver for Duke.
Yeah, but he went to the NFL. Dylan couldn't even
but
make it
then-
in Michigan.
It's because Michigan doesn't know how
Quit
to
dogfighting.
players. I think Adrian Martinez, we saw with the competition with Tristan, the quarterback for Oregon State, that I've totally forgotten his name. I don't give a shit about him anymore because he's transferred. Lit a fire under Adrian Martinez's ass his freshman year. I think Luke McCaffrey being there and actually gun for the position lights a fire this year. We're turning a lot of our starters on offense. Our defense is getting younger and better because all the old players were dog shit. I'll tell you that now. I'm excited. I think that if we can run the ball against Wisconsin, we have a good shot at making the bowl game this year. And we were able to run the ball against you guys last year, which surprised the hell out of me that we had a 200 yards on the ground against you guys last year. That's the litmus test I'm looking for is Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Lincoln.
Yeah, so I'll go out a little bit different here. Obviously, the two that I'm most excited to watch, Wisconsin, Minnesota. But I'm not as worried about that because that's not the final game of the season. Even if Wisconsin does lose that game, I'm expecting Minnesota, who by then already has to play an improved Illinois team, an Iowa team, and a Michigan team, to have already lost at least one game. But I think that Wisconsin at Iowa to end the season is going to be a massively important game. I have Iowa coming in on my number 2 position in the Big Ten West. I like them a little bit more than I like Minnesota, and the reason is that we have not seen what P.J. Fleck can do when he loses a bunch of starters, but we've seen what Kirk Ferentz can do when he loses a bunch of starters. He loses a bunch of starters, his team comes back, and they're still at least 7-5 the next season, if not better, right? We said fucking C.J. Beathard, after he left, there's no way Iowa's going to be good. Well, then they got Nate Stanley, and now their new quarterback is quote-unquote better than what Nate Stanley was, though I can't remember what his name was. They lost some solid depth on the offensive line. They also recruited well. Not massive losses on the defense. They lost with the loss of H.A. Epinesa. But this was also an Iowa team that we saw absolutely throttle USC in the Holiday Bowl last year. Iowa has a little bit of a cakewalk of a schedule. Michigan State's not expected to be bad. Penn State's supposed to be a tough game. But other than that, if they can get through Minnesota and they can get through Nebraska, Iowa has a solid shot at fighting for the Big Ten. And it's really for no other reason than because they're Iowa and they're always competitive.
Yeah, but there's one big question you're forgetting. Has Kirk Ferentz lost the team?
I don't believe so. I mean,
At least not publicly.
You could kind of argue, okay, did fucking I can't remember what his name is, right? Mike Gundy lose Oklahoma State. And you could say, well, looking at their game against Tulsa, maybe. But he's still the head coach. They're still winning games. It is what it is. Iowa gets some ramp-up games, basically. They get to they're at Purdue, and then they're home against Northwestern. And both of those teams aren't expected to be good this year, especially with guys like the Purdue wide receiver who decided to opt out. I can't remember.
Oh, Randall Moore.
There you go.
And Michigan State is expected to be rebuilding this year. So
Exactly. Especially with the new head coach. So
I hate that.
Mel Tucker. Yeah,
exactly.
I hate that guy.
So that's where I think Iowa has the opportunity to make some really big noise. So now we're just going to run through our list from 7 to 1, East and West. And the reason we're doing it this way is because the Big Ten announced a new thing, which I thought was pretty cool. I think we've talked about before that we think is pretty cool. So the Big Ten is playing 8 games, but there is a 9th game that will be played. So if Michigan and Minnesota both finish 3rd in their conference, then week 9, while the winners are playing the Big Ten championship game, those 2 teams will play each other. If Rutgers and Purdue finish 7th, those teams play each other. This is really just another opportunity for teams to get one more quality win against Big Ten opponents, possibly clinch a playoff or a bowl season berth, whatever it might be. I think this is really cool. So that's why we're kind of breaking this down this way, because the Big Ten is the only conference who's doing this. So I will start first. We'll start in the East. We'll all go over our East, and then we'll go to the West. In the East, at number 7, I have Rutgers. I like what Greg Schiano is going to do in Rutgers, but this is still a massively rebuilding team that's going to take a lot of work. So Rutgers comes in 7th. At 6th, I actually have Indiana. Indiana has a pretty brutal schedule. They've got, obviously, who they normally play in the East. And then their crossover games are Wisconsin and Purdue to end the season. Wisconsin, they have to go on the road. Purdue, they get at home. Wisconsin's going to be a tough game for them. Purdue, because they fight for the old Oaken bucket, is always going to be a tough game. So I'm going to put Indiana because I think this team, just like Rutgers, could run the risk of maybe not winning a conference game. Maybe they only beat Rutgers. Number 5, I'm going to put Maryland. And the reason I'm going to put Maryland is that Maryland's schedule is a little bit easier. They get to play Rutgers. They get to play Indiana. They also get to play Northwestern. And I don't expect Northwestern to really be anything this season. So I'm going to put Maryland, plus I really like some of the things that team is doing. Number 4, Michigan State, just because they're massively rebuilding. Number 3, Michigan, because even though they're probably also rebuilding, they still have Harbaugh and they're returning a couple guys. Number 2, Penn State. To me, they're superior to all but the last team in their conference. And Penn State also has a little bit of a difficult schedule. But Penn State benefits from the fact that they play Ohio State week 2. So even if they lose, there's a couple more opportunities for Ohio State to maybe trip up. And then number 1 is Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State loses a game at all this season, actually. I have them winning the Big Ten in general. So what does your guys' East look like?
Okay, so my East, it looks very similar to yours. We just have 2 teams flip-flopped. All right, so from the bottom at number 7, Rutgers, they have a new coach. They've been a rebuilding team since they've been in the Big Ten, so I'm not expecting anything from them. I agree with Indiana. I don't think they're there yet. They're I actually put Michigan State at number 5.
Really?
Yeah, just because they're rebuilding, and with Mel Tucker being there, who was, kind of at Colorado, not the best. And I put Maryland ahead of Michigan State just because they had a little bit of a better team, and just because Tua's little brother is going to be coming in there starting. So if he's anything like his brother, then I think that definitely puts them ahead of Michigan State. And then number 3, Michigan, just because of the rest of the East is kind of weak, and just because they're putzes, so they can't go any farther. Penn State, they lost Michael Parsons, so they really can't have a shot at number 1 anymore, even though it was slim to begin with. And Ohio State, just because it's Ohio State, and they're getting back their players anyways. So, yeah.
Sure, fair. Skyler, you look like you had some things to say, so what's your...
Yeah, about Indiana.
I'm shocked with your guys' picks for Indiana, but I'll get to that. Okay, so at number 7, I agree with you guys. Rutgers, Greg Schiano, he's got his work cut out for him. I didn't really understand the hype behind him, but you know what? Coming back, I wish him the best. I like having somebody besides Ohio State and Penn State good in the Big Ten. So if Rutgers can get to competitive, I'll be okay with it. Number 6, Michigan State. I think this team is rebuilding. I don't think that they're going to be a bad team, but I think the fact that they're rebuilding this offseason be crazy. The fact that they got a head coach late, that hurts recruiting, that hurts confidence and morale on a team. I think they're in the right position. Mel Tucker, I hate the guy, but I think he's a pretty okay coach. Can get them on the right track. Number 5, Maryland. As dog shit as they were last year, they got off to a great start. I think we all kind of forget that because of how horrible they were at the end of the season, and that had a lot to do with injuries more than anything else. Mm-hmm. I think that their coach also, can't think of his name, but former Alabama defensive coordinator, I believe. Yeah. I think that he's getting them up there. I think adding Tua's little brother definitely helps. I think they'll be competitive, but again, they're in the East. Number 4, Michigan, because I don't trust Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is an okay coach, playing mainly East opponents this year. It's difficult. And then I'm number 3. I have Indiana. Guys, they had the best season that they've ever had last season, going 8-5, and they lead the East in returning starters. Michael Penix Jr. is played lights out last year. I'll give you the fact he's a sophomore this year. Sophomore slumps are real. I'm looking at this at power rankings. Indiana can go anywhere from 3 to 6 in my mind. I get it. But I'm saying right now, as returning starters, their coach has them on the right track. Yes, they have a horrible schedule. Give it to you. Give that to you. But I think power rankings is how we're doing this. I think Indiana and coaching, returning starters, we've seen how stability in this offseason helps teams. I think that stability, having the same quarterback that got you winning as many games as you did last year, having as many returning starters as you have, makes them a better team. I'll give you the fact that it's Indiana, and historically, after a good season, they drop off. I'll give you it. They're still a basketball school. But I'm optimistic about this team. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm optimistic about them. Number 2, Penn State. I want to put them number 1, but with Ryan Day, as many returning starters, Justin Fields, Ohio State gets number 1. James Franklin, I'm optimistic. I think they can win the Big Ten, but they have to overcome Ohio State, and James Franklin has done it before, but I don't know if he can do it this season. That's my East.
So when I initially looked at this, I did want to put Indiana higher, but here's why I can't. Indiana's schedule doesn't give them the opportunity to ramp up. They start out home against Penn State, at Rutgers, home against Michigan, at Michigan State, at Ohio State, home against Maryland, at Wisconsin, home against Purdue. So they get tough game in Penn State, should get a cakewalk in Rutgers, right? And then 3 straight tough games, because if Michigan State is lackluster, still going to be tough. Then they get what at least used to be a little bit of a ramp-up home game against Maryland, but we're expecting Maryland to be better. And then they got to go to Wisconsin, and then they got to come back home to play Purdue, which is already going to be a tough game because it's a trophy game and an in-state rivalry.
It's understandable.
And with my thing is that because there's no ramp-up games and because there's no bye weeks in this season, I don't think it gives Indiana the opportunity to get hot, is my thing. But I also understand what you're saying there.
I'm just saying, I think going to Ohio State, this team could be 3-1. And I think they can win those.
Maybe, sure.
I think they can beat Michigan because, again, I don't trust Michigan, especially after losing Shea Patterson, who wasn't a great quarterback, but he was able to do stuff with that offense that we hadn't really seen.
Yeah,
like
Michigan, a Michigan quarterback. Yeah, like actually win a football game. I'm a Michigan quarterback in a while, because like Denard Robinson and the guy after him,
Devin Gardner.
As much as they were like this new version of a quarterback, Michigan needed a Shea Patterson. That's the kind of quarterback that thrives well in this team. And I had Dylan McCaffrey as the starter for Michigan, and him deciding to transfer, I don't think bodes well for Michigan as a football team.
True, but again, Michigan still recruits really well. Michigan to me is kind of similar to like Notre Dame, not in the sense that like they're always a powerhouse, but every year you look at it and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And it turns out he's a 5-star recruit. So, is what it is. Now, to the West.
The home division.
Number 7, Northwestern. Again, Northwestern, they had a Clemson commit at quarterback. They returned a bunch of guys, and they were dog shit last year. And I think that they run into the same situation this year, especially because Northwestern was one of the schools that a lot of their kids who are expected to play football still aren't back at school right now, and that's one thing that hasn't been talked about enough. And their schedule is brutal. Home against Maryland, then they got to go at Iowa, at Purdue, at Michigan State, at Minnesota. Luckily, they get Nebraska and Wisconsin at home and then close the season against Illinois. I think that's a brutal schedule. I don't have them going very far. Number 6, I have coming in at Purdue. Purdue, for me, I think this is a team that's good enough to probably beat Illinois. This is a good enough team to definitely beat Northwestern. They should definitely beat Rutgers, and right there, that's 3 conference wins for them, and that's good enough. Number 5 coming in, I have Illinois. They have a brutal schedule, and I don't trust year 2 of the Lovie Smith process. I really just don't. To start the season on the road at Wisconsin, then 2 weeks later you got to play Minnesota, then 3 weeks after that you have Ohio State and Iowa. I think they're good enough to win some of those games like Purdue, like Rutgers, like Northwestern. They could probably beat Nebraska just right now, only because we don't know what Nebraska's looking like if I'm going off of last year's Nebraska team.
I'll give it to you.
And right there, that's 4 conference wins. That's good enough. Number 4 on my list goes to Nebraska, because I do have Nebraska beating Illinois. They should beat Northwestern. They should beat Purdue. And I genuinely think Nebraska can pull off an upset on this list, whether it's Ohio State, Wisconsin, Penn State, Iowa, or Minnesota. I think that Nebraska can realistically pull off 1 or 2 upsets, depending on the health of this team and if they can cut out the silly little mistakes. One thing that really endeared Scott Frost to my heart was after a game last season when he said, I don't have a team of winners. I don't have a team of guys who know how to win. And I think that's the culture that he's trying to change after the Mike Riley era, because Nebraska rushed for 200 yards against Wisconsin. When was the last time a team not named Ohio State did that shit? But they couldn't produce because they couldn't kick field goals and they turned the ball over a ton. And if Nebraska can cut off those silly mistakes that a young team does, this team can be dangerous.
Nebraska had the youngest team in the Big Ten last year.
Yeah, and they're returning a lot of players. Number 3 on my list, I have Minnesota. And again, it ultimately comes down to the fact that last time PJ Fleck had to take a program that was going to lose a bunch of starters and try to bring them back, he instead left Western Michigan to go to Minnesota. Now, at Minnesota, he lost his safety. As of right now, he lost both starting wide receivers. He lost his quarterback. He lost linebackers. He lost
Tanner Morgan's back.
Tanner Morgan's still there.
Oh, I thought he left.
No, Tanner Morgan's still there.
Whatever. He still got his quarterback. He lost halfbacks. He lost offensive linemen. He lost a lot of players. He's recruited well.
Okay.
He pulled a 4-star defensive back out of SEC country in Georgia. He pulled a couple of guys from Florida. He's recruited well. But because I don't know what PJ Fleck is going to look like in what should be a quote-unquote reload year, I have to put him at 3, only because my number 2 team, Iowa, I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get an Iowa team that is going to reload with a bunch of no-name Iowa boys on the offensive line and defensive line, with a bunch of 2- and 3-star recruits who are going to ball out, with some tight ends that nobody's fucking heard of, but that will be first-round picks in the draft, and with a quarterback that isn't going to blow your lights off, but is going to do enough to not lose them the game. So I'm going to put Iowa at number 2. The other key point to the reason why Iowa is at number 2 and Minnesota is not is because Iowa gets to play Wisconsin at home. Minnesota has to go to Madison. That is where I think there is a massive difference. And then number 1, I have Wisconsin. I don't really see Wisconsin. I'm not even going to say it. Wisconsin should win the Big Ten West. That's what I'll leave it at. So then that leaves my Big Ten championship matchup, which is the rematch of the last, what is it now? 2 years?
3 years, at least 3
Some
years.
shit like that, which is Ohio State versus Wisconsin. Unfortunately, because Wisconsin is not returning guys like Quinton Cephas, guys like Jonathan Taylor, I think this Wisconsin team will be fine. Because when John Clay left, we were like, fuck, who now? Turned out it was Monty Ball. When Monty Ball left, we were like, fuck, who now? Turns out it was James White. When James White left, we were like, fuck, who now? Turns out it was Melvin Gordon. When Melvin Gordon left, we were like, fuck, who now? Turns out it was Corey Clement. When Corey Clement got hurt, we were like, fuck, who now? It was a freshman from New Jersey named Jonathan Taylor. Wisconsin will be fine at the halfback position. I'm not worried about that. And as announced today, they got John Dietzen back, who's a fantastic offensive lineman. So that big, those big honkies that they got will remain honkalicious. But I don't think that it's enough because Ohio State is returning even more talent. Though I think it's still going to be a close game because Ohio State doesn't have a Bosa brother or Chase Young in the pass rush, as well as they lost some depth on the defensive back position. And the linebacker position as well. So I think the Ohio State defense can be vulnerable, but I still have Ohio State winning the Big Ten.
All right, so we have a different West than I thought it was going to be from the start. All right, so at number 7, I agree with you. I think Northwestern is the dog shit of the West. They get the 5-star Clemson quarterback recruit. It looks awesome, and it just blows up in their face. It was funny. And I don't think they're going to do any better. At 6, I have Purdue. They're on the right track, but losing Rondale Moore, I think, limits their cap. So I don't think they can do better than 6 without him. At number 5, this is where it gets different. I have Iowa. I just, they didn't return a lot of starters, and they need to reload. And just with what happened with Kirk Ferentz and the whole team, those two together, I just think I don't think that we're going to get the same Iowa. At number 4, I got Nebraska. I agree with you. I think that Nebraska has the potential to be, win the games that they should and pull out an upset or two. So I think this is the perfect setting for them. At number 3, I have Illinois. I just really liked what I saw from this team last year. Obviously, them kicking our ass, shines a bright light on what they can do, and if they can continue what they did last year, I think number 3 is the perfect spot for them for their potential, and I like what they have. Number 2, Minnesota. Just because they won the Big Ten, and with us, quote unquote. But still, I think Tanner Morgan is probably the best quarterback in the West, and he's still on the team, even though they lost, Tyler Johnson, and it doesn't look like they're going to get Bateman to opt in just because of the technicalities or whatever. So I still think they have good enough team to be second, and then obviously Wisconsin. Until I see otherwise, to me, they're always going to be the number 1 team in the West.
I mean, I can understand where you're coming from, but I would agree with you more if, let's say, 10 players from Iowa decided to leave the program after everything that came out. But to my knowledge, nobody left the program. No players besides the one coach's son, who the coach was accused of being racist. I'm not aware of any players who left the program. I still think Kirk Ferentz has a solid hold on that locker room. I think the university has a solid hold on the locker room. But I do understand where you're coming from there.
Yeah, I don't think they're the second best in the West.
I think they were the second best in the West last year. I mean, hell, they fucking beat Minnesota, didn't they? Yeah, they did.
Did they?
Yeah, because remember, had Iowa not beaten Minnesota, Wisconsin wouldn't have gone to the Big Ten championship because Wisconsin had lost to Ohio State earlier that season.
That is true. You're right.
Yeah, but that's like saying Illinois is better than us because they beat us that one time, even though we went to the Big Ten.
No. Because remember, this was a week after Penn State had walked into Minnesota and Minnesota beat them. All right, this was a week after that. So, meanwhile, Iowa was coming off the week before that tough loss to Wisconsin on the failed 2-point conversion, if I'm remembering this correctly. So, Iowa could not win the Big Ten West, but they could play spoiler, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah,
and I think that the fact that Iowa gets to play spoiler again, the possibility of it, week 9 at or home against Wisconsin, bodes a really good opportunity for him there. I'm sorry, week 8 home against Wisconsin. Yeah. Really good opportunity for him. But I guess I understand what you're saying. So Skyler,
honestly, yeah. Go Skyler.
What's your list?
So my list. It's a little different than your guys. Along the same lines, but a little different. Number 7, I have Purdue. I think Rondale Moore, losing him is a much bigger deal. As much as I think Jeff Brom's a good coach, I think losing one of your star players who you didn't have last year, and we kind of saw what happened to that team when they lost him. They had another wide receiver step up, but it was still not where it should have been. The constant turnover at quarterback, I feel like, for Purdue. I think that there's going to need to be, I need to see that next step from them. Sure. Until I see that next step, I would consistently rank them as the last team in the Big Ten. Number 6, I have Northwestern. I have them because Pat Fitzgerald, for some reason, is able to make a mediocre team look good.
I think it's just the strength coach with the really cool mustache.
It probably is. Consistently, Pat Fitzgerald makes a mediocre team look good. They have a tendency to play up to their opponent. Last year, I think, was an outlier, honestly, just like the year before that was also an outlier. Just in different directions. They needed to even out a little bit, and they'll go back to the mean where it's like they're around a 6-6, but in this case, like 4-4, 3-5, 5-3 team. They have the potential to upset some teams. They have the potential to play up. They seem to have figured out their quarterback situation, but you never know. It's Northwestern. Number 5, I have Illinois. I think they could be higher than this. Like Mitch, I'm a little optimistic for them, but I need to see that next step from Lovie Smith. They're definitely getting closer and improving as a team, but I want to see what it's like when they're not relying on transfers in order to win games, specifically USC transfers. They have the returning quarterback, which helps them out. They have returning starters, which help them out. But at the same point, again, I'm still waiting for Illinois to make that next step. Going 6-6 is a great start. Beating Wisconsin is a great start, but I need to see another step. Like you guys, at 4, I have Nebraska. I'm optimistic for our team. If this wasn't a 9-game schedule where I don't know who our ninth opponent is going to be until the end of the season, I could possibly put them third because we're not a young team anymore. I think Adrian Martinez is the best quarterback in the West talent-wise, whereas Tanner Morgan's the best experience-wise and just fundamentals works best. I think Adrian Martinez will get out of his slump because he's not going to have to do nearly as much. We have a new offensive coordinator who should help us be able to finish drives instead of just like plateau once we hit there. A lot of returning starters on that offense or defense is getting revamped, which I like. More players that are familiar with the system instead of Bo Pelini and Mike Riley holdovers on that defense. DiCaprio Boodle, who led the Big Ten in pass deflections last year, is returning, which bodes well for our defensive backfield, which I think really kind of let us down sometimes last year. And he's very versatile, plays the safety and the cornerback. Number 3, I have Iowa. The reason I put him at 3 is because I think that culture is hurting right now. I agree with Brady in the sense of they are able to put 2- and 3-star players from bumfuck Iowa on that offense and defensive line to and then become second or third day draft picks that we don't know of. They're able to recruit in Nebraska and Wisconsin and Iowa very well, even though Nebraska and Wisconsin seem to be changing that and going into Iowa and taking players out of there and bringing them to their schools. I still think Iowa, but then I agree. Again, on the other hand, I agree with Mitch. I think there's a culture problem at that school, and until I can see otherwise, I don't think that they can unseat other top 2 teams. And actually, I have them tied for first, Minnesota and Wisconsin. I think they're tied for first. I think this is the weakest Wisconsin team I've seen coming into a season in a long time. But caveats, I've said that every single time they've lost a second-round running back. Jonathan Taylor, I was like, before Jonathan Taylor came in, they lost Melvin Gordon. I was like, hallelujah, they don't have a running back that can destroy us anymore. I'm so happy three horrible years later. I don't know what to say. Jack Cohen is able to somehow not turn the ball over and win games, or at least not lose games. The defense is always reliable. I love you guys as defensive coordinator. He's just a little squirrel, and I absolutely love it. Paul Chryst is probably the best coach in the Big Ten at this point. Ryan Day's just gotten lucky, at least.
Oh, yeah, he's everybody's dad.
Yeah, Paul Chryst is. I love Paul Chryst. I love the culture that he brought back to Wisconsin. I love that he stayed there, has had every opportunity to leave, and he hasn't. And he's done like other coaches I can name. Gary Anderson, Brett Pillen. But so that's why they're not second. Minnesota, on the other hand, I agree with Brady in that I've never seen PJ Fleck rebuild a team, but it's almost the exact opposite of Iowa. The culture at Minnesota is amazing. He had those players buy in immediately. He has turned that program around. Tanner Morgan is definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten as a whole. Probably fundamentally the best quarterback in the West. I have them tied for first because I don't think either one of them is going to lose more than 2 games on this standing. If I'm going to have to pick the outright winner, it's probably going to be Wisconsin because they're the kings of the North until somebody unseats them.
All right, so then it sounds like all of us have agreed that the Big Ten championship game will be Ohio State versus Wisconsin. I made my pick in Ohio State. Gentlemen, who are you picking to win the Big Ten outright?
60-0 Wisconsin.
Ohio State's going to take it because Wisconsin is, again, I believe the weakest they've been in a while.
And Ohio State gets to return Sean Wade and Justin Fields.
Yeah, and Ohio State has probably the favorite for Heisman now that he's playing this season, returning. I'm going to have to go with Ohio State. I think it's going to be a close game like it usually is in the first half, and then I think Ohio State's just gonna pull away there in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it a million more times. No team that I've ever watched, no organization, brand of football that I've ever watched has a better ability to make halftime adjustments than Ohio State. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they smoke out there. Whatever it is,
I am interested to see every year. I'm going to be more and more interested to see. Much as Ryan Day recruited really well this last offseason, I'm interested to see how he implements that because now this isn't Urban Meyer's team anymore. This is Ryan Day's team. So it's going to be.
I don't know if they do adjustments though. I mean,
they do. Ohio State. I don't know if you've seen it, but Ohio State.
But they asked about it at the Big Ten championship game where it looked like we're going to win, and then they turned it on, and they asked one of the players, I don't know if he was saying it tongue-in-cheek or if he was being dead honest, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We didn't make any adjustments.
But it's Ohio State. It's going to be tongue-in-cheek 9 times out of 10.
Adjustments can mean a lot of different things. It's not necessarily that they came down and went, okay, we have to run this offense now. What Ohio State does that not a lot of their coaches do is that once halftime happens, all of the coaches, even the ones in the press box, go down to the locker room. And they all get together. They figure out what each and every one of them are seeing, and then they go from there. I've seen them do it against Alabama. I've seen them do it against Clemson. I've seen them do it against a lot Wisconsin more times than I can count. Not always do they win, but there is no lead I could have against Ohio State that I would be comfortable with outside of 56-0 at the half. So before I give just a quick acknowledgement to a member of the Badger family that is hurting, gentlemen, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up tonight's mini episode?
No, I'm just glad that I'm going to be able to see Badger football.
I'm going to point to something that Mitch said. If I'm Scott Frost, every single game beforehand, you look at that team and you go, this opponent, whoever it is, goes, we fought tooth and nail. People in this locker room fought tooth and nail to make sure our football season came back. They didn't. They did not. We fought every second of every day since they announced we weren't playing to be here. Go kick some ass. The disrespect is going right on the corkboard in the locker room. They have those anymore in there, and just going, this is who we're up against. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't think they have cork boards. I think in Nebraska they're just corn boards. That was a little. Thank you. So, just a quick shout out here to a member of the Badger family. On Sunday night, shortly before kickoff against the Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots running back and former University of Wisconsin alumni, James White, his parents were in a car crash in Miami. His father passed away. From what I understand, his mom is still in critical condition. I have had the pleasure of meeting James White's parents. One time when I went to a Badger game, I was sitting directly behind them. They were fantastic people, and I'm very sorry to hear about his loss. I hope that him and the rest of his family are doing fantastic. They're trying to get through this really tough time. As a Badger fan, one for my entire life, I feel for you, James. And I want you to know that you have the entire love of not only the Wisconsin Football Nation, the Big Ten, the New England Patriots organization. Even though I hate Robert Kraft as an owner, I love what he offered to do. He offered to put James on his private plane and fly him down to Miami that day. But James decided to stay with his team. I hope that you and your family are doing the best that you can. I understand that it's a tough situation. It's a tough time. Just know that the Wisconsin football family always has your back, even the most lowly fan like me and Mitch. And I just want to say that it was an absolute pleasure to meet your parents when I did back when I was I think 12, and I saw you play at the University of Wisconsin. So I do appreciate appreciate that small moment of their lives that I got to be a part of. That was a huge moment of my life. So I hope everything's going well for you, James. So with that, boys, we are wrapping up.
I don't get to say anything?
If you want to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, you're not the only Badger fan here. First off,
I'm the only one that matters.
Screw you for calling me lowly. And then second, obviously I did not get the honor to meet his parents like Brady did, but just judging off the character of their son and what I've seen him do at Wisconsin and with the New England Patriots, obviously, he has amazing parents. It's very sad to see what happened, the passing of his dad, who was a police officer for Miami, and I'm sure he served them well and was the model of what we need from police officers. I'm really hoping that his mom pulls through so he doesn't have to lose both of his parents. And obviously, the Badger family is behind him. We've seen it through Russell Wilson, J.J. Watt giving their condolences. Obviously, the tight-knit running back group gave their condolences as well. And, former teammates, we saw Tom Brady say something. So he is loved, and I'm just wishing for the best, and I hope he can pull through this.
Yeah, just quick as a Patriot fan, as much as I hated seeing you play against Nebraska, I've loved seeing you play as a member of the Patriots. We all kind of collectively agree that you deserved the Super Bowl 52 MVP.
Absolutely, hands down.
There
For
was
sure.
you were the reason, most of the reason why we came back in that game and won that Super Bowl. You deserved that truck. You deserved that Super Bowl MVP that night. For as much as you've given to us, as many games as you've won, as many guys you've made happy, I'm sorry for the loss of your dad. And like these two, I hope your mom pulls through. While sending our thoughts with you.
We do want to give one quick little shout out there to James White, and that is if you guys get the opportunity to go like a post on his Instagram, he is at Sweet Feet. He posted a picture of him with his father, Tyrone, and James with his son, Xavier. And it's a very sweet photo. It's a photo that truly a lot of people should like. Rest in power, Tyrone White. You were, I'm eternally thankful for being able to watch your son play football at the University of Wisconsin and with New England. So with that is Fourth String Sports Podcast Lite. Same amount of content, fewer calories. Episode 2, that focused solely on the Big Ten. We will have several other Lite episodes planned. I have no idea what the next one is going to be. We'll roll the dice and figure it out. On the next episode, the main episode we're going to talk about, we have week 2 of the NFL season in the wraps. We're going to look forward to week 3. We have our picks. We're going to talk about the East and the Western Conference Finals. We're also going to give a quick shout out to college football. So it's going to be a great episode. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Follow us on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, SoundCloud, Reddit, YouTube. And email us your guys' thoughts on anything that we've ever covered at fourthstringsp@gmail.com. With that being said, everybody have a fantastic night, and thank you for tuning into the Fourth String Sports Podcast.